and welcome again back to another installment of Straight Talk. I'm your host, Egypt McKee. Today's topic is one that is life-changing, life-altering, and pivotal to life in general. Missing in action. No, I'm not talking about another Rambo film, not talking about you lost your keys. I'm talking about the role of absentee fathers in life. This particular topic is a little bit personal to me because that is my specific life's experience. I can give you my perspective, but my perspective would only be limited because to some degree, some of you may not have grown up with your father for various reasons. Maybe he passed away for some tragic reason, or maybe he left. Maybe it was by choice. Maybe you know him today, but you didn't know him during your formidable years. And you're much older now, but you've always wondered why you were the way you were. Well, the statistics are relatively staggering. Quite frankly, they're mind-numbing when you think about the impact of an absentee father. You know, the assault on the nuclear family being that of one man and one woman, and the dynamics of a family relationship, be it extended families or the extension of that and how that all looks in the bigger picture, we can argue that until the cows come home, but the reality is that within a family structure, a female mom and a male dad, husband and wife, raising a family in the perspective of their relationship, not only with their children, but with community, with government, with corporations, with life, within society. Just these multiple relationships come together, and it's really the offspring, it's really the psychological effect as well as the physiological effect that affects so many young people, and the results are staggering. I'm not a big statistics person. Why? Because quite frankly, the numbers are always tainted toward the people trying to make a dramatic statement, and quite frankly, we're all guilty of that. If we really wanted to emphasize something from a statistical standpoint, we could just find the most damaging and brutal looking statistic and then use that as our baseline for making our point. But the truth is that the numbers really don't lie. The suicide rate for those who are growing up in families without a father, they're 5 times more susceptible to committing suicide. I mean, really, are you kidding me? 5 times more likely to commit suicide. This is mind-boggling to me. The rate of depression is at an all-out increased rate that is just puts them in a place of vulnerability, all because a dad was never in the home to really teach them order, respect, responsibility, protection, elements of identity, and understanding who they are and who they are not. We love to take sides when it comes to matters that we are either passionate about, that we're zealous about, or that we are very highly opinionated about. But when have we ever really taken a step back and said, you know what, let me just really observe the evidence, let me observe the trends, let me observe the behavior and see what role I play in that? I always talk about asking the right question, and quite frankly, the right question in most instances is simply this: what is the appropriate response for me right now? Sometimes that means to open your mouth and actually produce an action, do something. But I have to really think, many times it's about really just shutting up, just truly being quiet and getting to a place where you really observe what is going on. And when you do observe, then you look at what is most appropriate, what is reasonable in terms of a response that you as an individual can take. But when you do so, ensure that you do so with a level of professionalism and understanding for those in whom you are speaking or communicating to. This is one of the dynamics which is so disconnected, even messed up, about how a parent and a teenager or a parent and a 20-something-year-old young adult understands one another. Because the parent marches in and gives a dissertation, feels good about themselves, and then they leave. But the message was never received because the teenager or the young 20-something-year-old young adult receives that message as being a complaint or whining or bickering or just badgering. So it's easy to throw it away and say, I'm not going to receive that message because it wasn't packaged in a way that I can understand. So sooner or later, the parent gets very frustrated because they don't see a change in behavior, which was really their point from the very beginning, is to get the child to understand what they were saying and to change their behavior as a result of what was being communicated. But none of those things really happened. And there you go, back to square one. You're in this pool of mess all over again. A word that I pitched out to a group of young adults some time back was this word that we don't use very often in our culture. Certainly you may use it only once or twice, maybe in a 1 year or 2 year period. Recidivism. Ever heard of that word before? Recidivism. It's not a commonly used word. But what it really means is the rate at which a prisoner, once serving their prison term, gets out of prison, but also goes and commits another crime and ends up going back to prison. The recidivism rate. You know what that recidivism rate here in the state of California is? It's about 70%. 70%. 70%. Get a grip on that. I'm telling you, 7 out of 10 prisoners who get out of prison end up back in prison after their release. And nationally, throughout the United States, the rate is about 68%. So it's about the same. This is amazing to me because there are reasons why a prisoner who gets out of prison goes and commits the same kind or similar like or a different kind of crime and ends up back in prison all over again. But yet in the same way, recidivism isn't really limited to just prisoners. I would have to say the culture at large is under a recidivism type mentality. We get out of one sort of a struggle in life or one frustration in life, but yet we seem to learn our lesson from that over a period of time and we go right back into it. That's what we're going to talk about today. But before we do so, I want to transition a little bit before I come back to this topic a little bit. And I want to look at some people who are really making a mark in life today. I've got a special guest with me. His name is Andrew Enos. He's one of those up-and-coming movers and shakers. And I'm going to welcome to the show. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Egypt, thank you so much for having me.
It's always a pleasure to have you, Andrew, and thank you for being in the house today. Hey, man, been following you for quite some time, and, it's been a pleasure to know both you and your family over the years. I always looked at you as this young man with great potential. Out here in television land, we have a lot of young adults as well as parents who will watch this show because there's something about it that we talk about issues that are real, number one, and two, that require real people to become a part of a bigger village to change some lives. Tell us a little bit about yourself, because the whole prospect of music, I've seen you from early on to where you're at now, and what an incredible transformation. Where did, what's the message? What's your vibe, man? What's the story about you?
I'm actually still trying to figure that out. I don't know. This has been a crazy journey. I started out playing drums when I was 4 years old.
Wow.
And somehow, from being in hardcore bands, ended up leading worship and came to where I am now. So I like to say that my music has been kind of bipolar because I haven't really been able to...
I love that expression, bipolar music. You think you can start a genre like that? That would just be pretty
absolutely.
Cool, man.
A lot of fans.
Right. Well, very cool. I mean, really, the truth is that everyone has a message behind what it is they're trying to accomplish or what they're trying to do. You mentioned something a little bit earlier, starting out in hardcore bands. I think as with anything, because, that's maybe the knock, I think, on just about everything in life. But as it applies to music, I know in the rap industry, there are those who want to do positive rap, and then but what do you hear? It's overshadowed by gangster rap, right?
Yeah,
so it's this vibe of violence and anger and selfishness and, hey, look at me, I'm important and you're not. And then likewise with hardcore music, can there be a positive hardcore, or is it angry? Or tell us a little bit about how you got there and then what you made it once you were there.
Yeah, it was interesting because I just kind of found myself in it, and it was, I don't know, there was a lot of aggression, and the whole scene was kind of disrespectful. It got to a point where I wasn't really comfortable bringing my family around that anymore.
So was that an issue of safety then, just in terms of safety, or was that more the message that was being promoted?
Probably both. I mean, our band had a positive message for sure, but that didn't stop people from elbowing my mom in the face.
Wow. You know, you do not elbow mom in the face unless you want a foot all up in your bleep.
That's
you know
right.
what I mean? kind
Absolutely.
of thing. Right. Well, interesting enough, tell us about your current project, though, because that's one that, to me, seems to be a complete role reversal, or at least of the cooler side of the pillow, as I like to call it.
That's right.
Tell me a little bit about that, because that is very different from where you were.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm in the beginning phases of recording a new album, and I think I've finally landed in a genre that fits kind of my goal, kind of more of just a folky, indie kind of vibe. So I'm really excited about it. We're going to start tracking next week. So.
Wow.
Cool.
Now, you want to talk about completely different folk, you know, kind of indie vibe. Wow, that is much more, I'd say calmer
Yeah, a little.
music. But what's beautiful about it is you have this melodic type of sensory ease about your music. Your voice is uniquely different to me. The music style, when you blend that music tone along with your vocals, man, is it something completely unique. Tell our viewing audience, you know, where in the world they can, A, buy your album, they can support you, and how they can connect with you on social media.
Yeah, absolutely. My CDs are on iTunes and Spotify, Amazon. You can find me on Facebook, on YouTube at just Andrew Enos. And yeah, just check out what I've got there so far, and then you can expect a new CD up there pretty soon.
Well, I love this part of you too, because you know, anyone who is a musician, particularly vocalist, musician as well, and has a family, I tend to start asking those questions. Well, who's going to be your next generation? Tell us about your family and what you're doing to ensure that they actually explore the arts as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a little 3-year-old son, and he's singing that song from Frozen right now, just all the time.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's
wow.
amazing. So he's, I'm trying to allow him to explore instruments and just kind of land in a place. I never really wanted to be forced to play music.
Yeah.
I think that doesn't really result in just an overflow of what they want to do. So I think he's taken to drums. So I'm excited to teach him that.
Well, it's kind of interesting because I think a lot of parents, they feel you on what you just expressed there when you talk about allowing your children to actually explore an instrument, particularly drums. So as parents allow their children to explore the drums, they may want to invest in earplugs and other sound silencing devices to ensure sanity is stable within the home. How about your wife? Is she one of your vocalists? Does she work with you on any music or give you any ideas?
She is not. My wife is very good at grammar, so she helps me in that way. I actually just found out that she took 2 years of violin. I don't know how I just found that out.
How did you miss that?
Yeah,
You've got to incorporate that into something, man.
Yeah, so.
Well, that's beautiful. You know what? We'll be looking for that next album to have at least a little violin solo somewhere in there. You know, you'll have to put her to work and get her to work on that. I'm sure she'll be excited about that in some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely.
Well, Andrew, I got to tell you, you know, one of the things that attracted me to just the essence of who you are is your inspiration in life. Tell us a little bit about how you were inspired and what inspires you in the work and keeps you going.
Definitely. You know, without sounding too cliche, my inspiration is totally the Lord Jesus Christ. And it's kind of crazy, but I've landed in that because I've gone through a lot of screwed up things in life. And all along the way, I found that that's really my only passion. So I believe that lyrically, musically, you're going to present the overflow of your life and the experiences you've had. So my music, the core of it is Jesus Christ. And my hope is that that's not going to turn people off, that they're not going to stop listening to it, but rather that the music will draw them enough that the content doesn't even really matter. That's just where my heart is and what I'm writing about.
Thank you for sharing that. I got to tell you, that's usually the place where a reporter kindly switches subjects and moves on to the next question because they don't want to hear about that. But I really do want to hear about that because as an honor to you and what you're trying to do to influence the lives of others, it isn't born out of yourself is what I'm hearing. That your faith in Christ has allowed you to be in a position where you can just be you. And quite frankly, if people listen, thumbs up. And if they don't, thumbs up.
Absolutely.
But in all things, thumbs up. So I love the fact that you just stay positioned as to who you are, and what you're not. And I highly support all of that, and I affirm you in that. And Andrew, I want to say thank you, man, for being here today with me. You're moving and shaking, and you're shaping lives. And people, really, I want you to get in there, get a hold of Andrew's music, make sure that you listen in, share with a friend, and buy 10 copies and give 9 away. That's the way I feel about it, because we want to support Andrew because he's part of that next generation making a change in this world.
Thank you so much.
Well, thanks again, Andrew, for being with us. We'll see you next time, my friend.
All right, we'll see you later.
All right.
Destroy this house on sand. Our new foundation be.
See, I told you were going to like it. That's Andrew Enos. Make sure you get out there and get a copy of his music. Like I said, buy 10 copies, give 9 away. That's how we roll around here at Straight Talk. Well, next up, I want to go back to our original theme for the show, and that is missing in action, the effects of fatherlessness or the absentee father in the home. You know, this is a devastating thing when we look in culture and society, and we don't have to go very far to look at some of the damaging and damning effects of what happens to the lives of those who are missing a father in their home. One of the things that I think is so overwhelming to me is just this dropout rate in school. You know that students have an increased rate of dropout who don't have a father in the home. Some of you may say, well, why is that, Egypt? Well, that's a great question. Let's talk about why that is. Well, one of the reasons why is because a father in the home provides a kind of stability and protection and self-preservation that can't be provided if that person is not there. Why? Because that person builds a relationship, that person establishes a protocol for life, that person establishes manners and an understanding of identity, and that person plays more of just an influential role of just being such a body, a warm body that's in the home, but someone who actually invests in you. You know, when you think about making an investment in land or a business or an automobile or your education, you're doing so because there is a return on your investment at a specific point in time. The return on investment that a father invests within your life and in the lives of others is not necessarily something that is always seen immediately. Now, hold on a second, because some of you have the argument, well, I'm a stepdad, and, you know, my stepson or my stepdaughter has never really accepted me or never really brought me into the fold. Well, no one's talking about the fact that time doesn't matter, because time does matter. It takes time to build those relationships. I was mentioning a little bit earlier in the show that rules without relationships always lead to rebellion. Well, that's a mathematical equation that is certain to happen if you just check out or quit or just forget it all, or say, talk to the hand. Whatever your excuse or your reason is, there is real hope if you look at the facts that matter. Dropout is only one of those. Increased suicide rates. Then, of course, there's depression. There's unwed pregnancies. Well, that's a big one, particularly in young girls and young females. But then there's that residual, what I like to call, over the course of time. Maybe some of you didn't grow up with a dad and you wonder why you're just mad at the world for no given good reason. You just feel like, I'm just mad, I'm ticked off. I'm always, be like me, be mad, so I want to make everyone mad. You know, and it's just, that's an infectious kind of disease within itself. There's increased rates of depression and moping around and always looking at yourself as the victim. Always being down, the world's against me, it's always somebody else. So then you start to lose the reality perspective that, at some point you have to take ownership for two things, for things you have done and things you have not done. And there is a correlating relationship between those two, and those are two of the areas that we fail to really talk much about. Well, listen, there was a young man here recently who, high school student, who had a little eruption on his school teacher. This is what I want to call our YouTube moment of the day. Take a look at this clip here of what this young man had to say. He had two major indictments. I want you to listen very closely because this, in fact, is the state of the union within our education system that had to be pointed out by a high school student that's just had enough.
Hearing this freaking lady go off on kids because they don't freaking get this crap. If you would just get up and teach them instead of handing them a freaking packet, yo. There's kids in here who don't learn like that.
Bye.
They need to learn face to face. You're just getting mad because I'm pointing out the obvious and you're too
you're wasting my time.
No, I'm not wasting your time. I'm telling you what you need to do.
Get out.
You want kids to come in your class? You want them to get excited for this? You got to come in here. You got to make them excited. You want a kid to change and start doing better? You got to touch his freaking heart. Can't expect a kid to change if all you do is just tell him.
Bye.
You gotta take this job serious. This is the future of this nation. And when you come in here, like you did last time, and make a statement about, oh, this is my paycheck, indeed it is. But this is my country's future and my education.
I respect that. Can you go outside, please?
Score biz.
But there's a limit. When I'm not bitching, but simply making an observation.
Okay.
And now I will leave. You're welcome.
Good, bye.
And if you would like, I'll teach you a little more so you can actually learn how to teach a freaking class. Because since I got here, I've done nothing but read packets. So don't try and take credibility for teaching me jack.
Just go. Bye.
Hope you got that message from a young man named Jeff Bliss, high school student on the East Coast. I got to tell you, it's really sad that his two-point indictment, as strongly worded as it was extremely appropriate. Why? Because it took a high school student to stand up to a teacher who his first indictment was that as a teacher, the teacher complains about her salary, that somehow she's not getting paid enough to put up with a bunch of pansy high school students because she just has to waste her time and show herself there and have to go through that grueling process every day as if someone is just dragging her down in her life. Indictment number 2 was that she spends more time handing out packets rather than building relationships. That's the point I've been trying to make today, is that fathers, mothers, this idea of being missing in action is really a call to action, that you are bigger than just your importance of, in your mind, your dreams and your goals of what you want to accomplish in life. The things that you want to accomplish can't be accomplished until you begin to become the things that you were designed to become. And the fact that this high school student had to make a specific point about teaching, and if you engage in your teaching and actually become interested in your subjects, that they would actually perform. They would behave. You know why? Because they would believe you. And if they believe you, they'll follow you. But when they follow you and they're disenfranchised because you do nothing, you don't follow through, you lie to them, and you don't care about them, those are all recipes for disaster. Well, I'll tell you what, hats off to you, Jeff. Strongly worded, but highly necessary. But this is that place as I take a next step to the next spot in the show. I want to talk to you about Word on the Street. That's an opportunity where we get to hear from you about questions, about answers, maybe just comments about things that are really stressing you. First question comes to us in from Desiree. She says, my boyfriend and I have been dating for almost a year now. I'm 24 and he is 25. My boyfriend never had his dad in his life, but he loves hanging out with my dad. Is this normal? Desiree, it might not be normal, but I'm going to say, yeah, this is normal. This is okay. You want to know why? Because I can tell you, particularly as a man who didn't grow up with his father in the most formidable years of my life, I was attracted to men who were appropriately attracted to me and investing in my life, mentoring me, literally sharpening me, building me up, making me into a man of character, to recognize where I needed to make right choices and take ownership and take responsibility for my life, and also for being a contributor in a right way within life. So is that a healthy thing? Absolutely, it's a healthy thing. Now, on the other hand, some people might say, oh, he's just warming up to dad so he can be in good with daddy, because you know how dads are with their daughters, because dads don't play. You know, they'll take you out. And I ain't playing. I'm talking as one right now that don't play when it comes to protecting my family and protecting my daughters. But nevertheless, if your dad is investing in him, that's something that you should be proud of. Our next question comes to us from Teresa in Houston, Texas. She says, I never thought very much of my dad, considering he never lifted a hand to be part of my life. Now that I'm 30, married, and just gave birth to my daughter, I don't want to be jaded about my experience, although my husband is a very good man. What can I do? Teresa, excellent question. I got to tell you, quite frankly, we are all somewhat of a sponge to our own life's experiences, in the sense that we want to wring ourselves out on the next generation that comes up. And quite frankly, the way you treat your husband, both publicly and privately, your daughter will pick up over time. She will hear what you're like in private, whether you talk about your husband under his breath or talk about other men under your breath. You want to be very careful about that. So what can you do? You can take ownership to watch your tongue, watch your behavior, and then also ensure that you affirm your husband in the sight of your daughter as often as you possibly can. You mentioned that your husband is a good man. I have every reason to believe that. I know that he'll provide for you, and he'll support you, he'll encourage you, and he'll build you up. And as he does, you know what I believe is going to really start to happen is your perspective is going to begin to change on that of men, so that the jaded perspective that you had of your father will not be one that you continue to transform and transfer over to others going forward in life. Well, we're coming down to the last minute or so of the show, and I want to be able to share with you ways that you can connect with us. One of the best ways you can do that is through social media. And I'll tell you, we're out there, we're available wherever you want to go. Facebook, facebook.com/Egypt Speaks. Click like on our fan page. Connect with us. Leave me a question, #Egypt Speaks. Let me know what's on your mind. Also, on Twitter, /Egypt McKee, and YouTube as well, /Egypt Speaks. Leave us a comment, connect with us, subscribe to our channel, and let us know what you're doing so that I can hear about what's going on in your life and I can continue to be an encouragement to you. Another thing is, get a copy of my book. The show was really based upon the premise of my book, Life, the Struggle Within. You know what? At the end of the day, everyone's looking for an answer. We're all looking for hope. So get a copy of the book, share it with someone else. I always say, I don't build buildings, but I do build up people. And I hope building you up is that thing that I do today. I'll see you next time on Straight Talk with Egypt McKee.